Now, the early versions of the barcode looked like a bullseye, actually. It didn't look like a series of stripes like it does now. It was similar, however, in that it had some of those round circles, if you will, within the bullseye. Some of them were thin, some of them were thick, similar to how a barcode is, but it was a round shape. And they developed it in the late 1940s. So I think it was like around 1948. However, the problem they faced was that the technology that existed at the time didn't allow them to actually test it or even commercialize it.
So they were doing these dots, right? Did they have like scanning capability? Because just having the dots, you would have to manually read them, right? You would have to manually decode. So
Yeah,
what was their
it wasn't
solution
dots.
behind the solution?
So it wasn't dots. It was like a bullseye. It was like a target sign. But the technology at the time didn't allow them to even commercialize. So they had to actually just wait for 2 decades for the technology. They waited from 1948 when they actually created this to about
Uh-huh.
1960 to when
Wow.
the technologies that they needed, mainly their semiconductor, so the computers, the chips that are used at the time, picked up until that happened around 1958. They matured enough to be able to handle taking that data, decoding it, and interpreting it into a product number or a product code that can be used, along with the laser technology that took up
Mhm.
until the 1960s. So the laser technology needed to actually mature to be able to use in such a small environment. So you're not talking about a very bulky, heavy equipment, but also reliably enough that you can use it on a massive scale, like a supermarket. You're scanning every single
Yeah.
item.
So the guy, the executive that came with the kind of proposal, he didn't see anything for 20 years.
Probably not. He planted the seed and then went on for future generations to actually see the
He would have
benefit.
been so sad. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. He may have seen it. I don't know if he was alive until then, but
Yeah.
he didn't benefit from it up until 20 years later. And that's 20 years up until the technology evolved. So it's not that this is when it actually happened. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning as we get to this to the 60s is that in parallel to this, in the freight industry, so in the rail tracks and in the
Right.
train and freight industry, there was a similar technology that was being developed in 1967 that was trialed, but it didn't see a lot of success. It was called a car track technology, essentially. It was a set of lines of different color that would be mounted on every rail cart on every train in the US. And the point is, as they pass certain scanning stations, the scanners would look at those stripes of colors and determine what is that cart and therefore know what's in it. And that would obviously help them track it where it is and which location it has made it to. That
So given
technology,
that we didn't transition into it, what was the fault? Like what happened? Why didn't we pursue that?
that was created mainly for the railroad industry, and it was bulky. So those stripes that we're talking about, they're big, made for that industrial setting. One, two, they would get dirty all the time, and the scanners would not
Mm,
read them, and it just became a pain to maintain and manage, and they just got abandoned. Like they lasted for
yeah,
like
that
three
makes
years, and
sense.
then even the railroad industry abandoned them because they just were not really reliable enough.